The council chamber was a cathedral of cold light and towering architecture. Metallic pillars curved like the ribs of Leviathan, converging toward a suspended dais where the Galactic Council presided. Holographic banners of 23 civilizations rippled silently above their assigned seats, each banner a story of empires, wars, and treaties older than Earth's recorded history. And among them, small, unassuming, floated the insignia of humanity, a silver-blue sphere encircled by a laurel. Ambassador Elias Kalen rose slowly from his chair. The murmurs quieted as if someone had cut a wire. His fingers smoothed the crease of his dark green envoy uniform, a relic of Earth's understated diplomacy. In his eyes, however, there was no meekness. The room expected defense, pleas, excuses. Instead, they received his voice, steady, unhurried, carrying like a blade slid across glass. "The time for war has come," he said. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Clawed hands clenched. Tendrils stiffened. Chitinous plates shifted uneasily. High Imperator Zorvac Theroin's scales caught the light as he rose from his throne, his towering form a living monument of the Syrinx dominion, his slit-pupiled eyes fixed on Elias like a predator sighting prey. "You admit it, then," Zorvac rumbled, his voice a thunder over stone. "The Terrans prepare for bloodshed, and you dare to stand here, in the council hall, and declare it openly?" Elias met his gaze without a blink. "I admit nothing of your accusations, but I acknowledge reality. Fleets have moved, trade routes burn, armies muster in silence, while diplomats trade hollow courtesies. The question is not whether war comes, but who will ignite it." A low vibration traveled through the chamber floor as a dozen alien envoys murmured among themselves. The Arvanii delegate, translucent skin and frail, raised a finger. "Evidence, Ambassador. The Dominion claims your ships crippled their convoys along the Veil Corridor. Do you deny this?" "I deny," Elias said evenly, "that humanity has fired upon any recognized Dominion vessel. The attacks were precise, surgical, and conveniently timed with your Imperial fleet's advance toward our colonies. Draw your own conclusions." Zorvac's maw curled into what his species called a smile, a grim display of serrated teeth. "You weave words well, Terran, but the stench of fear is on your species. 50 years among the stars, and you believe yourself equal to ancient powers." Elias leaned forward slightly, hands clasped. "Equality is not required to defend one's home, only resolve." That single word, resolve, lingered longer than any raised voice could. Behind the Grand Chamber formality, the tension had weight. Reports of destroyed convoys, falsified transponder codes, and shadow fleets had arrived for weeks. Earth's colonies near the fringe waited for orders, wondering if the first strike would come as an orbital firestorm or a whisper in the dark. Council Speaker Ryzen, a crustacean-like mediator of the neutral KSYTH order, clacked his mandibles sharply. "Enough posturing. This assembly seeks facts, not theatrical defiance. We convene to deliberate sanctions, not to trade barbs." But the damage was done. Every eye in that hall had seen it. Humanity's envoy was not afraid, and that, more than the allegations, unsettled them. As the session recessed, Elias walked the curved hallway alone, the echo of alien footsteps fading behind him. His reflection trailed him the polished alloy walls, lined face, streaks of gray at the temples, a bearing more soldier than diplomat. Once he had commanded fleets. Now his battlefield was words. A soft chime at his wrist announced an encrypted message. He scanned it quickly. Another convoy gone dark along the fringe. Same pattern. No survivors. No transponders left to speak truth. He paused before the viewing deck, watching the void beyond the station's shielded glass. Stars glimmered indifferent, cold witnesses to a council that was fast losing its grip on peace. Humanity was young, yes, but not blind. Someone wanted war. Someone wanted Earth cornered, desperate. Footsteps approached, measured, deliberate. "You certainly know how to stir a chamber, Ambassador," came a voice, light but edged. It was Urasa Vare, envoy of the Xylan Compact, her opalescent skin faintly luminous in the low corridor lights. "I only spoke what they already knew," Elias replied, "or what they feared." Her gaze studied him, alien pupils dilating. "Zorvac will not forgive this." You challenge him before the banners. Forgiveness was never his gift, Elias said dryly. Truth seldom needs it. She tilted her head. Then I suggest you tread carefully. Accidents happen in these halls. Elias offered a faint smile, polite, unreadable. Let them try. Humanity has survived worse than accidents. As she drifted away, her words lingered like smoke. He resumed his path, steps measured, mind already working. The council chamber would reconvene in 2 days. By then, Zorvak's accusations would grow teeth. Forged evidence, manipulated recordings, perhaps even a staged confession. The Dominion wanted a casus belli, and the council, fractious, weary, was ready to let them have it. Back in his quarters, the lights dimmed to a muted glow as the door sealed behind him. He poured a measure of synthetic brandy into a crystal tumbler, its amber reflection flickering against the cold glass. Reports scrolled across the table's projection field. Intercepted communications, Dominion fleet movements, fragments of intelligence pieced together by Earth's overstretched spy network. Every line pointed to one conclusion. They were being maneuvered, not outgunned. He keyed a secure channel. A hollow emitter flared to life, projecting the flickering visage of Captain Rana Voigt, chief of Earth's delegation security. Her jaw was tense. You made an impression today, she said. I wasn't hired to charm them. She almost smiled. There's chatter, sir. Zorvak's adjutants are pressing for a no-confidence vote in your seat. Some want you removed before the next session. Elias swirled the drink in his hand, watching the amber liquid catch the low light. That would make things easier for them. Should I double your detail? No, that would make things obvious. Let them think I walk unguarded. Her eyes narrowed. That's a risk. So is breathing, Elias said. Keep your people in the shadows. If Zorvak pushes harder, he'll show his hand. The line closed. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the station's life support. Elias stood by the viewport, looking out once more into the dark. Out there, beyond the glitter of the council's illusions, were Earth's colonies, fragile, unready, trusting him to keep the war from their skies. And out there, somewhere in the lanes of cold commerce, a Dominion fleet waited for a reason to strike. His fingers tightened around the glass. The time for war has come, he murmured again. Softer now, less a declaration, more a warning to himself. But war, he knew, did not always begin with guns. Sometimes it began with a single sentence, spoken clearly when all others whispered. The corridors of the Ascendancy's spire were never truly empty. Servitors glided silently between bulkheads, their glassy eyes recording everything. Holographic banners cycled through council decrees with sterile precision. Yet, for all its noise and light, the station carried an undercurrent, the kind that told seasoned diplomats they were being watched. Ambassador Elias Kalin stepped into a secure conference suite carved deep within the human delegation sector. The room's matte black walls swallowed stray reflections, and a single table projected encrypted interference. Captain Rana Voigt was already there, fingers dancing across a hollow map of the trade routes under dispute. They hit another convoy last night, she began without preamble. Outer Vale. No survivors. Transponders erased clean. Not a trace left to prove who fired. Elias scanned the display. Red marks littered the map like droplets of blood trailing toward Dominion-controlled space. They're framing the lanes carefully, he murmured. Just enough destruction to stir outrage, never enough to leave fingerprints. Voigt folded her arms. The Dominion feeds the council doctor reports. Some of the junior delegates already believe we're striking first. If this keeps up, they'll have justification to mobilize a fleet. He looked up from the map, expression unreadable. Let them mobilize. Mobilization is not war. War is a decision, and that decision still sits in that chamber. Her jaw tightened. For now. The door hissed open, admitting a new figure. Urasa Vare, envoy of the Xylan Compact, her iridescent cloak whispering over the floor. Her species rarely visited human quarters without an entourage. Today, she came alone. Ambassador Kalin, she greeted, voice low. I trust your security measures are as thorough as you claim. They're adequate, Elias said. Speak freely. She placed a crystalline data core on the table. This is Dominion traffic intercepted near the corridor. Encrypted, but suggestive. You may find the names interesting. Voight took the core, sliding it into the table's receiver. Lines of alien script flickered, unresolved. It'll take time to break. Then work fast, Urasa said. Zorvac is not patient. His fleet shifts under cloak, and some among this council hunger for a decisive example. If Earth is that example, you will not have the luxury of debate. Elias regarded her with a faint tilt of his head. And why the sudden generosity, envoy? Her pupils narrowed to thin slits. Because a Dominion victory would not stop at your borders. They have no appetite for equals. For a moment, their gaze is held. Two predators circling an invisible carcass. Then she turned, her form shimmering as she left without a backward glance. Voight exhaled sharply once the door sealed. She's risking her neck, or she's baiting a trap. Both can be true, Elias said. He shifted the projection, calling up council rosters, recent voting patterns, subtle shifts in alliances, favors traded in shadowed hallways, signatures added under duress. It was a web, and someone had set its threads tight around humanity's throat. Get this decoded, he instructed, quietly. No transmissions off station. Zorvac will be watching for them. Voight nodded, already tapping out commands. And you? I have a meeting. The council's public forums were bright, ceremonial, all glass curves and brass tones to impress the uninitiated. The private levels, where true bargains were struck, were stark. Narrow halls, sound-dampening fields, the air just a little too cold. Elias entered a side chamber where two minor delegates awaited him, the twin-brooded MRRK of the Shattered Spires. They were a feline-like race with mirrored eyes and a reputation for selling whispers. You come alone, the elder of the two observed. I find honesty arrives faster without an escort, Elias replied. The younger MRRK leaned forward. Dominion couriers offer us trade for silence, but trade spoils. Silence grows teeth. Elias folded his hands on the table. Then I suggest you choose your teeth wisely. The Dominion wants a pretext for war, but pretexts are dangerous things. They often cut their makers first. The elder purred softly, neither agreement nor refusal. You imply survival lies with the Terrans. I imply survival lies with those who do not become Zorvac's shield. Elias said, tone even. Earth may be young, but we remember our lessons. Empires built on deceit rot from within. The younger's ears flicked. You speak like one who has seen empires fall. I have, Elias said simply. They parted without signatures or promises. In politics, absence of refusal was often the first step toward agreement. Hours later, the lights of the human sector dimmed to night cycle. Elias returned to his quarters, mind running calculations. Who would profit most from a sudden war? Who had moved their fleets quietly, long before the accusations began? The Dominion's expansion had been steady for decades, its hunger barely veiled beneath ceremonial treaties. A chime cut through the quiet, not the polite summons of a scheduled call, a sharp, encrypted knock. He answered. A grainy hollow of Voight appeared, her expression dark. We broke part of the code. Show me. Text unfurled across the projection, fragmented coordinates, and beneath them a name. Zorvac Theron, authorizing overseer. It's him, she said. The Dominion's own logs places authority on the raids. They've been striking their own convoys under false flags, blaming us. Elias felt the tension in his chest settle into something colder, heavier. Not surprise, confirmation. How many know? Only my team. Good. Keep it that way. Leaks now would start the very war he wants. Voight hesitated. So what's our play? Expose him? Take it to the chamber? Elias looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. Not yet. Proof is power only when it cannot be dismissed. Hill called this forgery. Sabotage, human deceit. We need leverage, the kind that makes denial dangerous. Leverage like what? His eyes remained fixed on the void. Something only he understands. Sleep did not come. It rarely did on the spire. The station thrummed with restless ambition, and in its corridors moved too many eager to trade peace for advantage. Elias reviewed files until dawn's cycle glowed along the rim of the habitat's rotation. Schedules for the next session arrived. 2 days, as expected, with Zorvac demanding a formal vote to censure Earth's presence. He closed the files. The path ahead was set not by choice but by gravity. He would not beg for mercy in that hall. He would not hand Earth over to appease a predator. As the artificial sun began its slow rise across the station's central axis, Elias poured a cup of black tea. Its steam curled upward, a fragile signal in the cold air. 2 days, he murmured. Let's see how far the Dominion will reach. The Ascendancy spire awakened with a hum of engines and a whisper gravity adjustment. Light bled to the high corridors, refracting off glass filaments that lined the council wing. Today's session would decide more than trade routes. It would set the trajectory of war. Ambassador Elias Kalin entered the grand hall flanked by 2 aides, their steps silent on the polished floor. Above them, banners of 23 empires hung still, their colors muted in the artificial dawn. Conversations rippled across the tiered seating. He caught fragments in a dozen alien tongues. Terran provocation, Dominion retaliation, inevitable escalation. High Imperator Zorvac Theroin was already in position, his scale bulk dominating the central podium. A projection of burning convoys flared behind him, each image carefully selected for outrage. The Dominion crest glowed like a wound. Look upon their crimes, Zorvac thundered, his voice a grinding echo that carried to the chamber's farthest arch for convoys in one cycle. Merchants slaughtered, treaties mocked. And what does Earth say? Coincidence. Unverified. Lies to master ambition. A few delegates nodded. Others shifted uneasily. The council was not united, not yet, but its balance wavered. Elias stepped forward. His entrance was unhurried, his posture that of a man accustomed to storms. High Imperator, I see you're prepared to theater, he said, voice steady. But you have forgotten the script. Zorvac's pupils narrowed. You mock the dead? I question the living who profit from them, Elias replied. A ripple of sharp murmurs coursed through the chamber. The speaker, rising to the KSYDH order, rapped the dais with clawed staff. Order. The assembly will hear verified evidence, not barb exchanges. Elias raised a hand, and a new projection unfolded. Intercepted coordinates, fleet movements, shipping lane disruptions, each marked with Dominion encryption codes. These attacks, he said, occur only along corridors where Dominion fleets quietly gather. Convenient, is it not? Zorvac snarled, exposing serrated teeth. Forgery, Terran deceit. They weave conspiracies because they lack strength. Then prove me false, Elias said, his tone unchanged. Release your fleet movements for independent review. The silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. Delegates looked from one to the other. Zorvac's jaw tightened, the membrane along his throat pulsing. You presume too much human, the Imperator said, low and dangerous. You speak as though your species is untouchable. No, Elias answered. I speak as though my species remembers history. Empires have risen here for millennia. How many still hold their banners? How many fell because they mistook silence for submission? The chamber held its breath. Even Ryzen did not interrupt. There was no mistaking the edge beneath the diplomat's words. Zorvac leaned forward, claws scraping the arm of his chair. A threat, then? A warning. Elias said, History does not remember who speaks loudest, only who endures. When the assembly adjourned, the hall erupted into a storm of private consultations. Alliances shifted in quiet corners. Envoys who had ignored humanity now measured their steps before crossing his path. Elias left the chamber without haste, his aides dispersing to collect whispers. Captain Voight intercepted him at the threshold. You just challenged the Dominion in open session, she murmured. That will not fade quietly. That was the point, Elias replied. Silence would have been an invitation. They walked the lower promenade, where the spire's design turned from ceremonial marble to utilitarian alloy. Security drones tracked their passage with unblinking optics. Voight spoke low. "The evidence we found. If the Dominion suspects we hold it, they'll act before the vote." "They already planned to," Elias said. "Now they must act without deniability." Later, in the secluded halls reserved for high delegates, he found Urasa there again. Her opalescent skin caught the low amber lights like flowing water. "You lit the chamber on fire," she said. "The Imperator will not forgive that." "He was never inclined to forgive," Elias said, "only to consume." Her gaze lingered on him, unreadable. "You play a dangerous game." "Not a game," Elias corrected. "A race. He wants war before his rivals prepare. I want time. And how will you buy it?" Elias regarded her for a moment. "By making him fear what time will reveal." The night cycle deepened, and with it the spire's heartbeat slowed. From his quarters, Elias transmitted encrypted fragments of the intercepted logs to 2 select factions. Not enough to expose their source, but enough to seed doubt. The Dominion's perfect narrative would now have cracks. Cracks widened in the right places could collapse a throne. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. He did not answer at once. The protocol would log whoever waited. After several seconds, the door hissed open to reveal a slim figure in maintenance garb. The glint of metal in the intruder's hand betrayed intent. Elias moved before thought. A sidestep, a wrist lock, a twist that sent the blade skittering across the polished floor. The would-be assassin slammed against the bulkhead, breath hissing between teeth. "Dominion?" Elias asked softly. The attacker spat in a dialect he recognized. "Dominion trade can't," rushed and panicked. Security alarms flared. Voight's guards stormed the corridor seconds later, hauling the saboteur away. Voight arrived as they sealed the door. "I warned you." Elias straightened his cuffs. "Good. That means he's bleeding." She frowned. "You call that good?" "It means they're impatient," he said. "And impatience is leverage." By dawn cycle, the station's internal channels were thick with speculation. The Dominion protested the unprovoked attention of one of their technicians. Other factions whispered of hidden proof, secret raids, and human steel beneath diplomatic cloth. Elias stood before the viewport. The artificial sunrise painted his reflection in gold and shadow. "The edge is here," he murmured. "One step more and someone falls." He closed his eyes briefly, weighing the scales. Zorvac believed the council would bend under pressure. But pressure, applied too long, could crack the stone beneath his own throne. Tomorrow's session would be decisive. Sanctions or censure, war or stalemate. The Imperator had overplayed before, and empires built on fear had a habit of collapsing when that fear no longer served them. Elias turned from the stars, cloak falling over his shoulders. "Prepare the delegation," he told Voight over the comm. "If Zorvac wants the blade drawn, we'll show him how sharp ours can be." The spire's corridors after curfew felt like a mausoleum. Gravity ran at half-strength. The lights along the walls set to a dim amber hue. Maintenance drones whispered through the distance, their sensors locked on predictable routes. For anyone not meant to be awake, the station was a maze of glass and silence. Elias Kalen moved with deliberate calm, his boots muted by the hallway's synthetic weave. His presence here would not be logged. Captain Voight had seen to that. Officially, he was resting in his quarters, preparing for the council session that would decide Earth's future. Unofficially, he walked toward a meeting no one else would witness. Zorvac Theron had agreed to a private audience. That alone told Elias the Imperator believed himself untouchable. The chamber lay at the far end of a diplomatic annex. Spartan, wide, its walls ribbed with sound-dampening material. Zorvac waited at its center, a towering silhouette of scales and armor. 2 Dominion guards flanked the door, but withdrew as their master signaled. The heavy seal slid shut. "You came alone," Zorvac said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floor. "I find solitude clarifies intent," Elias replied, stepping into the pool of low light. Zorvac's tail curled, a predator's gesture. "Then clarify this. Why does your species insist on dancing at the edge of a blade? Surrender your colonies, and this war need never touch your fragile world." Elias clasped his hands behind his back. A tempting offer, framed as mercy, seasoned with conquest. But I came to discuss something simpler. The Imperator's eyes narrowed. And what is that? Consequences. Zorvac let out a hiss that might have been laughter. You believe yourself capable of consequence. I believe, Elias said evenly, that history remembers those who act while others posture. The Imperator stepped closer, his bulk casting a shadow over the human Diplomat. Do you threaten me, little emissary? No, Elias said. I deliver inevitability. His hand flicked a command across the concealed transmitter embedded in his cuff. The chamber's vents whispered, an almost imperceptible sigh. Zorvac stiffened, his claws twitching as a faint mist curled around his head, invisible to all but the sharpest eyes. It carried no scent, no taste. The Dominion's own security had cleared this chamber. What trick is this? Zorvac snarled. Elias did not move. A correction. One that leaves no wound, no blast pattern, no trail the Council will dare follow. The Imperator swayed, his pupils dilating. He reached for his wrist console, but the commands faltered under trembling claws. His voice thickened, a guttural rasp. You would kill a sovereign. I would prevent a war, Elias said, his tone level as stone. One you designed. One you would have burned 100 worlds to ignite. Zorvac staggered, the floor groaning beneath his weight. He managed one more rasping breath before the toxin, tailored, precise, undetectable, silenced his lungs. The great frame of the Syrinx Imperator slumped against the table, his scaled hands splayed like broken talons. Elias watched, his expression unreadable. There was no triumph in his gaze, only calculation. He reached forward, closing the Imperator's glassy eyes with 2 fingers, a courtesy not born of affection but of ritual. The chamber sensors recorded a flat line, nothing more. The Dominion's official monitors would read cardiac failure, a quirk of biology under artificial gravity strain. In a hall built on procedure, death by miscalculation was a palatable narrative. From his cuff, Elias sent the final command. The vents flushed clean, the residue gone as though it had never existed. He turned and walked out, the door seals whispering shut behind him. Captain Voight was waiting in the dim-lit corridor. Her jaw tightened when she saw his expression. Is it done? It is concluded, Elias said. She glanced back at the sealed door. They'll suspect. Suspect, yes. Prove, no. They'll tear this station apart looking. That will buy us the time we need. By dawn cycle, the spire was in motion. Dominion envoys rushed between sectors, their voices low and clipped. An official communique declared Zorvac therein dead of acute vascular collapse during late negotiations. The Council convened an emergency session. Protocol demanded it. Elias entered the chamber as the hall filled with murmurs. No accusation yet, only shifting gravity, the kind that followed when a throne fell empty. Ryzen, the speaker, clacked his mandibles for attention. The Dominion requests stability in the wake of this tragedy, he announced. Their fleets will hold position until successor is named. A dozen eyes flicked toward the human banner, some wary, some newly respectful. Elias offered no expression beyond a courteous nod. One delegate, a serpentine elder from the Viren Confederacy, slid closer as the session recessed. Curious timing, the alien whispered. A warlord dies and the drums fall silent. Elias sipped his tea, unhurried. Curious, yes. Perhaps the stars were tired of his noise. The elder gave a slow, dry hiss that might have been a laugh. Your species, you do not roar. You wait, and then you cut. In the human sector, Voight met him again, voice low. Council intelligence flagged you for questioning. They want to confirm your movements. They may confirm them, Elias said. Every official record places me in my quarters. She frowned. You're not concerned? I am occupied, he corrected, pouring a measure of tea. Concern is for those without plans. The Dominion would fracture now. Leadership disputes, inheritance of fleets, rivals sharpening their claws behind closed doors. In that chaos, humanity would not only survive, it would carve space to grow. Night returned. Elias stood at the viewport, the stars indifferent as ever. His reflection stared back, lines deeper, eyes darker. One action, one moment without noise, had shifted the balance of empires. He whispered to glass, "War will not come this year." The station hummed, oblivious to the silence it sheltered. The council chamber felt heavier than before. No one mentioned Zorvac Theroin's name, yet his absence lingered like a low-on behind every word spoken. Delegates filled the circular hall with stiff courtesy, the kind born not of respect but calculation. Elias Kalen entered without flourish. His uniform bore no sign of triumph. To the council, he was still the envoy of a small, stubborn species clinging to its outer colonies. To himself, he was a man who had walked alone into the dark and tipped the balance. Speaker Risen tapped the crystal staff against the central dais, the sound cutting through layered whispers. By decree, the Dominion announces a provisional regency. No further fleets will advance until succession is resolved. A ripple of cautious relief moved through the hall. No one believed the Dominion would pause out of goodwill. But protocol bound them now. A dead warlord left rivals scrambling. No one dared move too quickly. Risen's compound eyes turned toward the human section. "Envoy Kalen, your people requested this session. Speak." Elias rose. His voice carried no boast, only iron in its restraint. Humanity recognizes the instability caused by recent events. We propose a stabilization treaty, cessation of all aggressive claims in the Orion corridor, suspension of embargoes on Terran colonies, and establishment of a neutral trade zone under council oversight. The room stirred, muted protests from Dominion loyalists, measured nods from rival blocs. The Viren delegate tilted his narrow head, studying Elias as though trying to read the ghost behind his calm. A Zalari senator hissed, "You offer too much human. Why would your species, so recently threatened, now seek balance?" "Because war consumes," Elias said, "and those who ignite it rarely live to rule its ashes." The statement landed like a dropped blade. Some heard warning. Others heard confession. After adjournment, the corridors filled with murmured negotiations. Voight caught up with him near the lifts, her expression caught between approval and unease. "You pushed them toward agreement." "I showed them the door," Elias said. "They will walk through it for their own survival." She leaned closer. "Dominion Intelligence sent a quiet request to our sector. They want you interviewed, off record." "That was inevitable. Do you want me to delay it?" "No," Elias replied. "Let them ask their questions. They will find only what they expect." The interview took place in a secure observation room. Cold lights, 3 recorders, and a Dominion adjutant with scales dull from stress. "Envoy Kalen," the adjutant began, voice clipped, "you met with the Imperator the night before his collapse." Elias did not flinch. "I met with him at his request, as did half the council in those weeks." The adjutant's gaze lingered on him, waiting for a twitch, a slip. None came. "You spoke for 30 minutes. The record stopped there. The Imperator requested privacy. And after that meeting, I returned to my quarters." The questions circled for another hour, probing without striking. No witness, no trace, no weapon found. At last, the adjutant's posture sagged. "We will report inconclusive findings." Elias nodded once. "I trust the Dominion values stability as much as appearances." Days turned into a measured calm. Trade routes reopened in cautious increments. Warships withdrew from their forward arcs, their shadows still long, but no longer reaching for Terran soil. The Council drafted the Orion Accord, not a triumph, not a victory parade, but a tether that kept the blaze at bay. In the human sector, officers moved with a new edge in their step. Colonies sent encrypted congratulations, though few would ever know the exact cost that bought their reprieve. Voight found Elias in the observation deck one evening. The stars stretched like frozen sparks. "It's holding," she said. "For now," he answered. "Do you ever," she hesitated, "feel the weight of what you do?" He turned to her, the faint light catching the lines of his eyes. "Every day. But weight is not a reason to step aside. It is the reason to stand." She nodded, not fully reassured but unwilling to press. Some burdens were carried in silence. The council's closing session came 2 weeks later. Ryzen read the terms with the ritual gravity of his office. The Dominion signed, its new region flanked by wary generals. Humanity signed second, a gesture that no one expected from a young species known for defiance. As the session ended, the Viren elder approached again, his voice a dry whisper. You did not win a war, human. You prevented one. Sometimes, Elias said, that is the only kind of victory that leaves survivors. The elder's frilled head dipped. Be careful. Empires remember those who deny them their wars. Elias almost smiled. I expect they will. When the Spire released its delegates back to their fleets, Elias remained a moment longer, staring at the emptying hall. The banners still hung, the flag still fluttered in controlled air, but the stage had shifted. Humanity would not be a pawn now. It had become a player. He keyed a private channel to Command. Accord signed. Orion corridor secure. Begin reconstruction schedule. A pause, then a voice through static. Acknowledge, Envoy Kalen. History will mark this. He closed the link, expression unreadable. History will ask how, he murmured. Outside, the stars waited, vast, indifferent, and filled with future wars yet to be named. Elias Kalen turned from a viewport. His work here was done, but the quiet war of influence, of precision and patience, had only begun.